All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video will be looking at must-draft centers for the upcoming fantasy hockey season. As always, the video presented by FanDuel Canada, the best place to be locking in your NHL season-long futures, as well as betting on football if you're into that stuff right now. So the link is in the description below to download the app. 5 must-draft centers so far for this year. This is honestly probably going to be a part 1. There will most likely be a part 2 closer to the season, maybe the week of all the fantasy hockey drafts. But 5 guys that I'm really targeting. We're going to be looking at guys. 1 guy in the first round, a couple guys in the 5th or 6th round, then some late round sleepers that I think you can stash on your team that could provide a ton of value for you this season. All right, and the first center we're going to be talking about is Leon Draisaitl. I know a lot of you are like, obviously you're going to be drafting Leon Draisaitl, but I want to make a point of the fact that it's Connor McDavid in fantasy hockey this year, and then Leon Draisaitl is above Austin Matthews and Nathan MacKinnon, in my opinion, this year. Everyone was like, oh, Draisaitl had a down year last year. Like, he still scored 41 goals. He finished 15th in terms of fantasy hockey points scored, and that was a down year for him, which I think is crazy. I think it's just people considered it a down year because of what he did the year prior to that. 52 goals, 76 assists, 128 points. He had 32 goals on the power play. 62% of his goals were on the power play. That just wasn't sustainable. I think we'll see him get back to the 50-goal range this season. I think the Oilers will score better at 5-on-5 this season with, the additions of Jeff Skinner, Victor Arvidsson, Vasily Bud Colson, a couple of guys that should definitely help, fill out the depth on this lineup. I think Connor Brown is going to have a much better year this year as well. I think Adam Henrique as that third line center can also prove to be really valuable for this Oilers team down the stretch. So I think this just opens up more opportunity for Leon Draisaitl, especially considering he will probably be playing with Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner, or a combo of the two. And I'm taking Draisaitl over Matthews and MacKinnon pretty much for what the reason I said at the beginning of when I started talking about Draisaitl. Matthews had a near 70-goal season. I think he'll be terrific, but he'll come down to earth after that. Like, it'll be a 55-goal season, I think I could see from Matthews, in between that and 60 goals. But he doesn't have the draw on the power play that Leon Draisaitl does. Leon Draisaitl leads the NHL in power play goals over the last 3 seasons with 77, I believe it is. The next closest is in the mid-50s, and that's Sam Reinhart. Austin Matthews is like 7th. He has about 16 to 20 power play goals per year, which is like the floor for Leon Draisaitl. And then you have Nathan MacKinnon coming off that Hart Trophy. I just don't know how much juice, honestly, this Colorado team has anymore, especially heading into the offseason. After this year, they're going to have to re-sign Rantanen. They're going to lose a lot of their depth if they want to keep some of those guys. What are they going to do with Georgiev as well? And I think MacKinnon was like the entire team this year. I think it'll be hard to recreate that exact type of season, which is the only way I think he outscores Leon Draisaitl this year in fantasy hockey. So I think there's lots of reasons why to like Leon Draisaitl more this year than last year. Obviously, coming off of down years, people want to continue to call that. I think we'll see the power play have a couple different looks too. Obviously, you have that first power play that's really good, but now you have Jeff Skinner and Victor Arvidsson to kind of help out and change the look of that first power play if they need to at the beginning or in the middle of the season, which they haven't really had the chance to do that in years past. And as I mentioned, 5-on-5, I think we'll see Leon Draisaitl score at his highest rate of his NHL career this season. All right, the next must-draft center I'm going to be looking at, if you watched any of my videos last year, you'll know this is a huge fan channel, if you want to call it, of Joel Eriksson-Ek on the Minnesota Wild. In terms of fantasy hockey, I love the style of play he plays overall, but fantasy hockey, he just adds so much to your team, or can. 150 plus hits last year, 250 plus shots, 400 plus face-off wins. He's an absolute machine. He does everything. I think we'll probably see him play a little bit less on the penalty kill this year, which is honestly probably even better. They'll probably just try to focus him in a little bit more into those offensive roles. He plays 21 minutes per game, or did last season as well. 3 straight seasons. I think one of the biggest things that's undervalued about Eriksson-Ek is his value on the power play. His 3 straight seasons with 12 power play goals, and that's a pure power forward. We saw him on 5-on-5 last year turn that shooting percentage from about 5 to 9%, notching 17 goals at 5-on-5, which is his career high. Creates a ton of offense. If you look over the last 2 seasons in terms of expected goals for, the total expected goals for the last 2 seasons, according to Natural Stat Trick, he's 11th in the NHL of all players, more than Sidney Crosby, Braden Point, Kirill Kaprizov, Mikael Rantanen, Nathan MacKinnon. Now, those players, I would say, all have better skill than Eriksson-Ek, but just pure brute force and opportunities that he's creating, within the other opponent's defensive zone is really valuable. And, a player like this will eventually have that 40-plus goal season because it's just one of those years where his shooting percentage jumps up to that 12% range, and he'll continue to have 250 shots. He has one of the highest goals above replacement on the power play over the last 2 seasons, so his created some of the biggest value to this Minnesota power play over the last 2 seasons, a guy that Minnesota can't really operate the power play without, it seems like. So super valuable. He'll probably be playing with Matt Boldy on the second line this year. It seems like that first line will be Zuccarello, Marco Rossi, Kaprizov. We'll kind of see how it shakes out. But if he ends up playing with Boldy or Kaprizov or both, I think we could see Eriksson-Ek's first 80-point season here. And right now where he's going, the 5th, 6th round, I think that's a perfect spot for you to take him because he can end up being a top 520 or top 25 fantasy hockey player. All right, the next guy we're going to be looking at, and a guy I never thought I'd really look at in terms of fantasy hockey, but I do love him heading into this season. That's Matt Barzal on the New York Islanders. So a really good year last year. Finally, that bounce back year that we've been looking for pretty much since his rookie season. 80 points, 23 goals, career high in goals. He had his best year, as I mentioned, his rookie campaign, but most shots on goal this year with 240, highest expected goals for of his career. So that goes hand in hand with his shot, with the amount of shots and the volume of shots he was taking. And I would say his best even strength and power play season, if you look at, wins above replacement and goals above replacement, 5-on-5 and power play. And I think we're going to see the same as last year, an 80-point season, but I think it could be even better, which is why I'm down with taking the risk on him in this 5th or 6th round as well. Patrick Waugh comes in, a little bit of a culture change. It's not going to be so like the last couple years under Lane Lambert. I don't really think had an identity. I think Lane Lambert's identity fell under whatever Barry Trotz was doing beforehand, which is a defensive-minded team. But I think Patrick Waugh can be, a good balance of the two. Obviously, being a goalie himself. But I think if you look at the teams that he's played with, they've had some pretty electric offenses. The biggest thing I think here that's kind of interesting, if you look at Patrick Waugh's coaching career with the Avalanche, those 3 years that he coached, the first year he coached, remember the piss and vinegar that he brought into that Colorado Avalanche locker room and team. They were a team that was supposed to finish outside, then not make the playoffs. Pretty sure they won their division that year, and boosted. Ryan O'Reilly had his career high in goals that year with 28. Matt Duchene had his best season at the time with 70 points in 71 games. Nathan MacKinnon was just budding into that superstar. I think that was either his rookie year or the year prior to that. But you saw these two kind of veterans at this point, I would say similar positions at that time to where Barzal is in his career, catapult them to being, their forefront scorers and guys that can put it together and create a really solid, efficient offense. And I think we could see Barzal take on that similar role this year. He should be playing on the first line with Bo Horvat and now their new acquisition from the offseason, Anthony Duclair. That is going to be a fast line, a very fast line. A lot of defensive pairs are going to struggle with the speed that Barzal and Duclair are going to have. So I think that's going to add so much to this Islanders offense. And I think people are discounting and underrating the Islanders this year, especially with, sounds like Sorokin will be back at full strength at some point, probably the start of the season. I think we're going to see this Islanders team kind of change completely and be a contender in that Metropolitan Division. So I think we're going to see a career high in goals again this year for Barzal. I would not be surprised, and if you can bet this market at FanDuel right now, I haven't actually checked the 30-plus goal market for Barzal, I would take a risk on it. The odds are probably pretty good, and he had a criminally low shooting percentage for the offense he created and the amount of shots he had last year, right around 9%. I could see him getting in the 12% range for sure with how skilled he is, and then just continue to pile on those assists. I think in a similar range to Joel Eriksson-Ek, but a different player because he doesn't add those other tangibles like hits, obviously, and block shots. I think Barzal is a slam dunk center pick in the 5th or 6th round. All right, I've already talked about this player in a previous video, Breakout Candidates. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. But Elias Lindholm on the Boston Bruins. The last 2 seasons have definitely been a little disappointing for Elias Lindholm. Last year specifically, only 15 goals, 29 assists. Just overall had a pretty poor rating, especially offensively. I believe his goals above replacement in terms of even strength offense was in the negatives last year, which is really, really bad. But there's a reason why I like him this year. He's in a much better situation and a situation where you can kind of flip that negative goals above replacement to a positive now that you're playing with David Pastrnak. And we've seen a lot of players do that and have some of their best years because that's not the style. That is the bottom of the barrel level of play we're going to see from Elias Lindholm. And there had to be other factors because he's not that type of player. He's 2 years removed from a 40-plus goal season with the Calgary Flames, and now he gets to play with one of the best goal scorers of this generation and a top 3 goal scorer probably in the NHL right now in David Pastrnak. We saw Pavel Zacha and Charlie Coyle both have really good seasons, playing alongside David Pastrnak. If you look at Pavel Zacha since coming over to Boston, really the last 2 seasons, he's had, I want to say, 5 or 6x increase in terms of his goals above replacement in even strength offense. And I think that could happen to Elias Lindholm as well. If you look at last year too, or the type of player Elias Lindholm has been over the course of his career in terms of fantasy hockey traits, like 100 plus hits is not off the table. 200 shots, he's had that or close to, in that 180 shot range to, I believe his highest total is about 220. He only had 12 power play points last year, but he can be a guy that can be very effective on the power play. I think we're going to see a 25 goal, 70 point season from Elias Lindholm. His shooting percentage over the last 3 years have been incredibly low for the talent that he has. I think a change of scenery here, a complete change of scenery, not moving from one province to the next that are right next to each other, going over to the East Coast, getting into a winning culture of Boston Bruins team with a team that had a really good year last season. I think Elias Lindholm is a guy that you can take a chance on in those later rounds as a center if you want later on. So Elias Lindholm, definitely a guy I'm going to be targeting and drafting in those late teen rounds. The last center we're going to be talking about, someone I'm looking to take in like the 14th, 15th round, 16th round, even if he's still there, if you can get him, a late round sleeper, but still someone I'd want to draft instead of trying to pick him up on the waiver wire because he probably won't be there, and that's Mikael Backlund on the Calgary Flames. And I know everyone's like, really? Like Mikael Backlund's probably had, 150 plus point season, and it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Last year, 15 goals, 24 assists. He played about 20 minutes per game for this Flames team, the captain of this Flames team. I think a lot of people think Calgary is in like a rebuild. I think they're in like a soft rebuild right now because they still have some solid talent with some young guys that are coming up. I really like what they did in the defensive end. Obviously, they have Dustin Wolf in nets now. But this line or the situation that Backlund could be in here, I actually was going to talk about Huberdeau in terms of a bounce back or breakout candidate here again. But I beat that drum too many times on this channel. I can't go back to it. And then I saw that Ryan Huska's potential lines that we're going to be seeing at the start of training camp and what could be the lines for the first couple games of the season. If he ends up needing to change them, that is obviously up to him. But Mikael Backlund paired with Blake Coleman, who he's played with over the last 2 years, they've been a terrific line. In terms of creating offense, Corsi for percentage, they're dominating any opponent's line in terms of shot creation, expected goals for, and now they add Connor Zary to that mix. A young, skilled forward who could add the boost to this line that could propel Mikael Backlund to being a guy that you can start on a nightly basis in fantasy hockey. He's had 200 plus shots and 70 plus hits in 3 straight seasons, Mikael Backlund. I know he's getting a little bit older, but he's still getting the puck on net. And, a similar conversation that I had about with Joel Eriksson-Ek, a guy like Brady Tkachuk is a guy like that too. Shoots the puck a lot, creates a high expected goals for number. Goal total doesn't always get there, but can some season. John Tavares is another perfect example of that. But Backlund could be that this year. Playing with a guy like Blake Coleman, who had a really good year last year, was able to find the back of the net relatively easily, whether it be shorthanded or 5-on-5. And then Connor Zary as well, a guy who could be, a 25 plus goal scorer as well. All 3 of these guys could be on this line, but I think it's definitely worth taking a shot on Backlund because his value is relatively low considering a lot of people think the Calgary Flames are not going to be a good team this year and a team that won't score a lot of goals. I definitely think he's a guy that you can take or worth taking a flyer on later in that 16th, 17th round, as your 4th or 5th center or what, depending on how deep your bench is. Mikael Backlund should be on. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of these must-draft centers. As I said at the beginning of the video, I could be doing a part 2, closer to the draft. If you guys want that, let me know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe. Shout out to FanDuel Canada, and I'll see you guys in the next video.